Just wanted to share with you some of the mistakes I've made while sewing this block. Hopefully pointing out my problems and then my corrections will help you sew smoothly. These diagonal lines are important features of this block. If you don't cut or sew them correctly, it will be almost impossible to match the center or to have a block that lies flat. When I get in a hurry, I tend not to be as precise and I get off on my cutting or possibly on my sewing. As you can see here, that diagonal looks really good down here, but when I cut through, I was off up here at the top. And once you get off, it's very difficult to correct. So remember, measure twice and cut once. If you just measure once, put that down and go very quickly, then usually you end up cutting twice. Because once I have a mistake like this, I just toss it and start all over again. At times I notice after sewing, so I've sewn each one of these squares together, and these diagonals look great. This one is off. Let me stick it up here and you can see that it's coming to the side. When I do sew these together, it should look like this, where I've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, and then, or here, and then these tips meet. If they're not meeting right here, then you either have to rip it out or just start over again. To avoid the tips of your triangle being eaten up by your machine, try sewing on a small scrap of fabric first, and then leading your triangle to the needle. You can also use a template to cut those tips off before sewing. It makes it a little bit easier. These two are the same. This block is spinning in a different direction. On this block, in this corner, the yellow is up on the top, and in this corner, the yellow is on the bottom. Now, all three of these pinwheel blocks were made from the same two fabrics, the yellow and this telephone print, but depending on how I laid them out, that's the way the pinwheel block turned out. Now you might say that's not going to make a difference. This one looks almost like those, no one will notice. If you put them together, it's secondary design here. If I were to move this one over, you're going to get a little bit different design. So that's why you have to be really careful that your pinwheels are all spinning in the proper direction. It's always important when you lay out your blocks to double check. So at this point, when nothing's sewn together, I can change this around. However, if I go and start sewing these pieces, and I get something like this, then it's impossible. If you'll see, if I've sewn these two together, this does not match. So always make sure you lay them out ahead of time and double check. I love using stripes in this block. I think they make it look like the block is spinning, but you have to be careful. You can see the stripes lead your eye from one section to the other, and you just keep going around and around. Over here, these stripes move in this direction, and then they move out of the block. In this particular section, the triangle stripe isn't correct. When I put this triangle in, you'll see that the stripes begin to move. If you want to add stripes to your pinwheel block, you'll need to make sure that each one of the triangles has the stripes going in the same direction. So you can do that by cutting them with this template, or if you're not concerned about the stripes lining up, you can cut two squares and then cut those squares on the diagonal. Make sure that each one of the squares, the stripes are going in the same direction. Cut the diagonals exactly the same, so that in this case I'm cutting from the top to the bottom, top to the bottom. When you do that, you'll end up with 4 triangles where the stripes are going all in the same direction. There are other ways to arrange these stripes in your block. Cut your diagonals like this, and you get a block that looks like this. with all the stripes going in the vertical direction. Try experimenting with your stripes to see what you like best. Sometimes I can press this to make it a little bit better. You'll notice these points are off in the center here, but if I come in and press, I can get those points matching without sewing. Your unmatched points won't be noticed as much on printed fabrics with low contrast. These high contrasting solids will really show any mistakes. Not all of these blocks match in the center. This one shows up for the most part, even though it's not off that much, as you can see. But you notice it more than you do this one. You see that this piece is a little too big. This piece is a little too big right there. So if I find that I can't live with my mistake, but I don't feel like ripping it out or throwing it away, then I'll just cover that up with a button or maybe with a little applique. Please watch the rest of the videos in this series, a quick method for making pinwheels and how to make a template for your pinwheel block. You might also like how to place your quilt block on point.